Welcome you all, everyone, to our the Digital Fifth webinar, where we having multiple sessions along with Type team, the PayNearby, Cateina. So, and this is a very interesting topic that we are going to touch upon. But before that, just quick intro from my side. I am Shashank Shekhar. I'm co-founder and taking care of the consulting at the Digital Fifth. We are a small fintech and digital consulting startup working with banks and the startups, helping them into their digital journey, digital transformations, open banking, as well as we work into the partnership and the training. We do lots of trainings, 2 days of the training programs on the open banking, the digital banking, and most of the participants who are going to participate in these webinars, be Yashwant or be Buddha, everybody has been taking sessions there. So just moving ahead on the agenda, all we know that APIs have been transforming the entire economy dramatically. That you start with Uber or the Expedia, which has been on the other side, where the complete new business evolutions are happening and driven through the APIs. And the banking segment has not been aloof with that. And India, if you look at it, the impact of the APIs in the financial services, we can go back in 2014-15 when Yes Bank and RBL launched their developer portal and made these APIs available for the world to consume. But in the last 3-4 years, we might have seen the massive push on the APIs. The driving the APIs has been more with the evolution of the more neo banks, challenger banks, open banks kind of concept, and more new terminology getting evolved, banking as a services, or the payment as a services, lending as a services, where the APIs are driving this new set of the business model. So today's primarily the focus of our discussions is going to be that when you're going to move on the API adoption journey, it's not the your fancy things that you need to build on the API. It's a need for the market. Whether you are a consumer or whether you are a provider of the API is the today's need. So when you're in the API adoption journey, what are the things that you need to take care of? How you go about building the API platform? What are the different practices? What are the different considerations that need to be taken care of? So that's we are going to talk about it, and I will be supported in the sessions with Sanchit. Sanchit is a good friend and technology geek. I can talk about it. Who is expert in the APIs, microservices architecture, and the blockchain too. And he has been running a company called Cateina Technologies, which is mainly into the API deployment and the development, working with banks and the startups in the Indian ecosystem, and helping the organizations to build the API-enabled business. And I've also been supported by Yashwant Lodha, who is being co-founder and director with PayNearby. And he has been leading the product management and technology development at one of the leading startup fintech, you can call it the PayNearby. And they have been one of the pioneer into driving this financial inclusion in India with AEPS as one of the core payment platforms from the NPCI. Almost like 30%, Yashwant, you can correct me, 30% of the India AEPS transactions are being performed through the PayNearby platform. And then I've also been supported by the Type team with Irwin, who's the account director with APAC and Type Technologies. Irwin has over 16 years of experience in the enterprise software and end-to-end solutions in the Asia Pacific region. Multifaceted knowledge in the cloud computing, business alliance, software industry exposure in technology portfolio. And earlier in the careers, he has been a strong sales professional. And he has been supported with Buddha. So Buddha is a product evangelist at Type, showcasing the capabilities of Type and how it drives business success in this client. With a background in both technology and business, he is very passionate about solving problems at scale and building a connected world through the API. So you can see the diverse, one is a consumer and building a new business model. One is a guy, Sanchit, who is helping the organization to build that API-enabled business, and the team from the Type is providing the platforms to help organizations to build the solutions. So moving ahead, just quick intro on the agenda. Peggy, if you can help me to move the new slide. Yeah. So Now, next 10 minutes, Sanchit will talk us through that what are the acceleration for the API adoptions. So he will be taking us a sessions on the pure on the building of the solution business model using the APIs and how the technology helps into doing that. And then a session from the TIE team, more on the introduction of the API gateway. What are the API gateway? How the management API management platforms get deployed? What are the best practices and considerations that need to be followed in developing that API platforms within the organization? So I think both Buddha and Irwin will be walking us through that. And then a session from Yashwant, probably where that he has built a very unique use cases using those APIs and the platforms of the type, and how is primarily he has built a business model. So he will be touching upon that and also giving a brief overview a product demo. So that's also, and then we'll have an open panel discussion with all the participants. So where we'll be just touching upon some of the critical components and then open the floor for the question and answer. So with that, I hand over to Sanjit to walk us through next 10 minutes on that entire API adoptions accelerator. Sanjit, over to you.
Thanks, Shashank. I think I have control now. Yeah, fine. So, hi guys, I'm Sanjit. I'm the founder CEO of Cateina. We are a small 70 people team of developers in India. And what we think we do is essentially helping companies work through their digital transformations. So we help set up, backends, we help set up integration applications and microservices, and our core expertise lies in integration, blockchain, AI, and enabling cloud practices for banks and insurance companies. We have a biggish footprint in India, but we do also have a presence in APAC and Europe and North America as well. So this is what we think we do. And when we talk about what we do, so immediately what people feel is something like this. So this is what people feel we do. So while we do work with a lot of technologies, things can get a bit difficult when you try explaining it to people. And integration is an especially challenging problem because you are immediately talking about multiple data streams and multiple kinds of data munging algorithms as well. So, and add to this the complexity of automating these tasks at scale. And essentially, this all boils down to this at the very basic level. So when we go to a fintech or an insurtech or a bank, what we end up doing is connecting different data points, different data sources to different data sinks. Uh, a good example would be if you are a lending company and for a lending platform that you've already developed, you now need to send notifications for every single loan repayment that happens. If you were to do this through custom code, this would immediately become a code spaghetti for you because that would require custom code to be added within your business microservices. And this is pretty much what bounded context is not about. So what we talk about when we talk about integration is building integration applications which handle the integration logic. And then you have your segregated, nicely packaged business applications at the edges of this integration platform. And each of these core capabilities can then be exposed as APIs for other partners within your organization or for other entities to consume these services as well. So when I talk about APIs, what are they, right? So an API, like I said, is an interface which you are going to expose to either your business team to build more services, further value-added applications, or if you are planning on a big product launch or a bigger partner ecosystem, you would ideally want to have these APIs exposed to the public over internet, obviously, to help your partners build custom experiences. Now, why should you really care about this? And I think the answer can actually be broken down into two logical components. So there's the business perspective, and then there's the tech perspective. If I were to take the business perspective, I think it's pretty simple. You can either make money or save money through APIs. So when I talk about making money, I'm immediately looking at APIs as the enabler for you to reach bigger customer markets. You can essentially look at partners to extend your developer ecosystem, and they would take up these business propositions to their own clientele. We will be looking at such a business proposition later when Yashwant presents his deck as well. However, there's also the other point in arriving at a decent enough bottom line, which is saving money. So by digitizing a lot of your processes, you can actually end up optimizing your workflows, and that ends up saving money for you. The tech perspective is a bit more nuanced, which essentially means that you can actually have, like I said, a segregation of concerns. You can actually have a good, solid management plane on which you can have fine-grained access control on what kind of resources you want different parties to have access to, obviously. And through this, you can actually have a better view as to when your systems should scale when you achieve those spikes. So if that's exciting enough for business and tech, the next obvious question should be, how do I adopt these APIs? What am I supposed to look at when I want to do API adoption? And my answer is this. We should be looking at the entire tech stack as an enabler for API adoption. So if we were to break down every single business into different layers, so you would have the data plane, and then we would have the control plane, and then finally the user plane. And each of these three are essentially key drivers for your API adoption. Because if we look at the data plane, we have, in the modern day and age, we have a lot of data-driven decision making, right? Which means that a lot of data sources have to be munched together to arrive at data decisioning, and that would drive API adoption. Okay, I think there's some ghost controlling my deck right now. Okay, fine. And then if I take the platform approach, we immediately have organizations that have these unique capabilities built in, and now they want to modularize these offerings and onboard more partners, as well as a new revenue stream through a new sales channel for themselves. And finally, we can look at the user plane. So with smart devices and the internet capability catching up, we immediately have new experiences. People demand completely new experiences. And right now it makes little sense for us to have a one size fits all solution. So earlier, I remember when I used to be a Drupal developer, and those were the dark days, obviously. But essentially what we had with something like a LAMP stack was, a single database connection, which would pipe all data to the front end. And these were, tightly coupled together, which would mean that, if you have a mobile device, it would never be, the best possible experience that you would get. So with different screen sizes, what your users expect is a customized experience every single time. And I think APIs are best suited for that. A deeper look at the stack, and this is what we see when we talk about data. So if there are any Ghostbusters fans out there, I'm pretty sure you must have heard about, when we about the downsides of crossing streams. But as far as business today is concerned, I think crossing streams is very much the in thing right now. And we can actually look at it at the very bottom of this deck, where you have multiple backend services. And we're actually even talking about a completely polyglot system. You could have third-party services, data getting in through third-party systems, and you would have a business case where all these different data sources have to work together in tandem to deliver a tangible business case. A good example would be credit rating. So let's say if you want to do credit rating, and it becomes better when you have multiple data sources working together. Let's say you have KYC data, you have buy data, sell, spend data for an MSME. So these are multiple data sources coming from different data channels. And what you would have in the middle would be services which would act on these data. And finally, a way to expose these APIs for separate systems to consume. So this is a good example of data driving your API adoption. So you have different data sources, and now you want to munch them together and arrive at a custom experience. The second, obviously, is the platform approach. you have an existing business. So let's say you are a payments company and you've already exhausted your current payments channels and you really still want to grow your digital revenue. How do you do it? Again, you're not going to do it with your current net banking or UI UX that you have, because that's going to tie in everybody tightly with your own ecosystem. So the best possible way that a lot of companies come up with is to have your own business as the driver for growth. So in this case, it could be a company which has, let's say, an LMS system or a core banking system, which would act as the bean counter service. And then you can leverage this to either onboard new users through a purely digital channel, and these would be end customers, or you could onboard a totally new category of people, developers, who would consume your services on your behalf and build custom experiences. We've seen this, in so many different places. So it could be a chatbot API from a chatbot platform that you could give out, and your partner ecosystem could end up consuming it in their own custom applications, and then you would have a totally new revenue channel. So this is a platforms-driven approach where you sort of end up extending your partner ecosystem. The third is user-driven, and you with your newer interfaces, you essentially have this requirement from users that with different data, with different screens, you need to be able to present custom experiences. So what you don't want to have is a single data stream which caters to both your web applications and mobile applications. And this is again where you want to create custom experience APIs on top of your core set of microservices. Okay, so all good. We have key drivers. So what's the hitch then? I think we have a few hitches, obviously. So just like the key drivers, I think we can find hitches across the three planes. In the data plane, we have these problems around the legacy systems. So if you want to extend your legacy systems, it's going to be a pain, obviously, because if you want to introduce custom code, that's going to create, again, a lot of code spaghetti. If you look at the control plane, then again, it's going to be very tough for you to also be able to manage security. You're going to have to manage spikes as well as outages. And again, it's going to be a challenge for you to ensure that all that extra code gets involved in every single microservice that you end up delivering. And finally, at the user plane, I think the challenges that you would have immediately would be from the larger developer ecosystem out there, which would expect world-class services from you. And I've seen this at a lot of partner ecosystems with banks and fintechs both, where the only documentation that they ever have is maybe a PDF or again, in worst case scenario, maybe a TXT file. So you don't want to do that if you really want to have a thriving partner ecosystem. So these are obviously the pitfalls. But I won't leave you with that because I think the answer is still well within our grasp. So what you want to have is a full-fledged solution which can do all that is required from an API management solution, and which can target all the layers of both of the data, the control, and the user, which is where your API management also sort of kicks in as well. And to talk more about that, we have Erwin and Buddha.
So thanks, Sanchit. So interesting insight into that. How do you go about adopting the APIs and drive your business and taking the session for further. So you, as you said, that you need to have that API management platform. So over to Irvin and Buddhas to talk about what are the best considerations that one need to be taking care while picking up the API platforms to drive new set of the business. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And once again, thanks for joining. So today I represent Tide. We are an API management platform provider. We work very closely with Cateina, who helps us in solutioning with our prospect customers, and we support the API management platform. So today I have myself and with Buddha. Buddha is our product evangelist. He will also be helping me to answer some of the questions at the end of the session. So just an introduction, who is Tide? We are a UK-based startup, right? Started in 2014 as an open source product by our founder, Martin. And while he was searching for a good API gateway solution, he decided that he wants a very lightweight, advanced, using an advanced technology API gateway. And so he decided to build one, published in GitHub. In 2016, there was a lot of requests, right, from customers who want to use a commercial license. And that's where we were born in 2016. We are API management agnostic, independent API management provider. All right, we focus just on API management, which also means that we do a lot of heavy R&D. We try to have technologies, new feature that is 2-3 years ahead of time. And we do this with 2 major releases per year. Right? We have some offices around the world. Buddha and myself are based in Singapore, UK in our HQ, as well as US. However, we have about 80 to 90 employees now, spread across 27 countries with a decent size of customers in the APAC region. Now, as a solution, as mentioned, API management platform. However, our API gateway today is still open source. So anyone who wants to use just a gateway alone, we call it the headless gateway, without the dashboard or the developer portal, they are free to use. The platform is developed in Golang. That's the reason why Martin chose this, because of its lightweight requirements. It shows here that we have actually have quite a good, decent benchmark in our lab tests with about 2 to 3K kind of API cost on a low specification. Right. In fact, we don't have any minimum requirements, right, to install our product. The product is microservices platform since day one. So all the components that are on the platform, they are all microservices with a very lightweight containers, right? A lot of customers find it very easy using containers nowadays to do their installation, setup, upgrades, and things like that. The product itself is API first policy, right? Meaning that we support API, our product has all the APIs in place. So every time we roll out a new feature, right, we always build the API first for the product or for the feature. Right? Not to say that we have a good support, whether you are paid customer or open source users. We also have a very active community for our open source users. So before I talk into a little bit more on the API management platform, let's look at some of the best practices that a lot of customers starts off with an API program. I think the very first and foremost, to have a very good, clear API strategy in place is very important. All right, with a program that is supported and driven by the executive. A lot of projects will start off from bottom up, which is a good place to start. But as a project goes by, a good executive buy-in is important. Clear objective, right? Sanchit has mentioned some of these objective of APIs, whether it's exposing your APIs to more platforms or more mediums, more messes, or the sharing of APIs to external parties, as well as having a close communication to share KPIs, objective, review all these strategies internally. Now we move on into APIs. We see a lot of customers who treat APIs as a product, right? Unlike traditional projects where they have fixed timeline and budget, but API really is an ongoing cycle, right? Where right, products has an outcome-based, customer focus, and it's more importantly repeatable and reusable, that it has ongoing improvement. right? So with alignment of product century model, product ownership is really very important. Right? Product owners who focus on identifying stakeholders, identifying user needs, and be able to then not just look at technology, but also to look at raw data and combine them to solve business problems. Right? I remember one of our customers who have been using an API gateway for many years, or at least for their first year, but it didn't get started because a lot of their teams are building APIs in silo and there's no owners that taking ownership. Next, we look at API adoption, right? Very important that you don't want to waste your time spending the effort to build up your API, but no one consuming it. So really documenting your APIs in a very clear manner, which has a good discovery onboarding process, really is important so that your partners can be able to subscribe to your API easily, as well as communication, consistent communication, right, with the developers, announcing new releases of APIs, some use cases that you can share with them using your APIs. Those are very good collaterals that you can increase adoption. Last but not least, API lifecycle. So as I mentioned, API have a lifecycle, right? They are just so API have a life cycle. They are just like projects that go through life cycles. Every stakeholders knows what their responsibility, and this will increase the delivery of the APIs. Now, today, because of a limited time, I have only touched on 4 topics, but really we have a white paper that we can share with you later at the end of the program, so that you are able to understand a little bit more on how best practices of starting an API program. So the last slide, the last point I talk about lifecycle, and this is essentially what an API lifecycle management entails, right? With the provider, which is you as a API owners and provider that provides your API to the consumer, to the outside world, external party or your internal stakeholders, right? It goes through this whole life cycle, right? From creation all the way to securing testing, as well as then publishing with a clear documentation for partners to onboard, discover, consume, and develop, integrate into their application. And so this whole life cycle actually takes us through a API life cycle management, and this is where Type fits in with our platform, right? As you see here, we have many building blocks that supports, whether it's from a provider perspective as well as a consumer perspective. All right, things like a designer authenticated your APIs. How do you want to limit your API traffic and things like that? As well as from consumer side, having a clear platform to publish documentation, setting up some processes to do self-service enrollment so that they can request a token from you, so that they can test it in a sandbox environment before they integrate into your application. Okay, so having look at API management, Type API management, some building blocks, let's look at some of the considerations that we have when we talk to our prospect, our customer in the open banking, digital banking scenario. What do they usually look for, and what kind of discussion do we have, right? Obviously, more important is securing the API, right? Be able to authenticate and authorize the correct party to use your API, right? Supporting industry standards for out of the box as a platform. And as well as not just out of the box, but some prospects, they already have some custom authentication in place, right? Can the API platform supports that custom authentication, right? Reusing your codes to plug into the platform, right? Something like Type, which is open source, easily can help you support that. I talk about API adoption, right? That includes like a clear using a clear documentation which supports open specification where everyone understands the documentation, as well as a partner onboarding, right? Self-service discovery. Next is about legacy and modern systems, right? Many prospects, they may have some system that's on SOAP that is maybe 10, 15 years old, but they have some systems that is on a newer technology, right? How can a platform like Type be able to help you to integrate them, or rather to coexist together so that you avoid a system overhaul, right? Customers nowadays are also looking for a platform, right, that supports GraphQL, right? A very new technology that a lot of prospects are now evaluating. Okay, the last 3 points talk about usage. How can an API, when you roll out API, understanding usage patterns, whether it's by API, by your partners, right? To be able to help you understand the requester, number of requests, and more importantly is to assist you, right, in your ongoing improvement of your API lifecycle. Service level, digital banking is always services is a big concern, right? Where you need to have the platform to be easily scalable when traffic increases, or be able to then have different service level for different APIs. Some APIs may have more traffic with more requests, while the other APIs may have a lesser request. Last but not least, managing and maintaining the platform. I think not just setting up, but ongoing maintenance, right? Tomorrow, if there's a new version coming in, can it help you to quickly do a blue-green deployment upgrade strategy so that your system, you still go on 24/7, right, without needing to bring down the system, right? And as I mentioned before in the few slides, Tide is a very lightweight platform. In fact, a lot of our customers, they find that having Tide does not require massive infra investment. So we have customers who have a gateway in production with a 2 CPU, 2 core, right? And in a EC2 cloud instance, 1 CPU, 1 core specification. So that's how lightweight Tide is. Okay. So if not, then these are some of the areas and sharing I want to share today. Right. So we have later we'll be sharing with you a link for download as well as short survey. It is available in your chat. If you will be open up the chat now, you can see the link for the white paper as well. If not, then our website also have some sign up trials, right? Whether you want to set it up a trial on a cloud environment or even your on-premise environment. So thank you so much, and I'll pass on to the next speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. I think Peggy, so we'll just take in a just few second pause. And Peggy, we want to have a one quick poll, right? Peggy, you're there.
Yes.
So, okay, so we're just going to take a quick poll, just at a very, to lighten the more atmosphere. So, Malvika, can you just post the poll? It just take 30 seconds, will not take more than that. It will just appear on your screen, and we just want to get that response. Almost 50% response. That's pretty interesting. That so set of the participants that we are having. Yeah, done. So I think we'll be ending the poll. That's thanks, guys, to participate and taking the session. So taking the sessions ahead, so over to Yashwant, who has built the platforms to launch platforms enabled banking or whatever you talk about, and especially venturing into new business model. So over to you, Yashwant, and talk about your experience of building that new set of business. Yeah, Yashwant, you're on mute.
My apologies. I didn't realize. Right. So thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you, Shashank and Tyke team and Cateina for hosting this session. I will take about 10 minutes for the whole session, where I'll cover what we do today in the next maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and then discuss our our journey into APIs and why do we want to go into the API space at all for in the next 2-3 minutes, and probably try and squeeze in a demo for about a couple of minutes if the time permits. Right, Shashank, how are we doing on time?
Yeah, we're more or less on the track.
Right. Thank you, Shashank. So, right, for people who trying to change the slide. Right. So, PayNearby, just to give you a brief overview of what we do, right? PayNearby we started about 4.5 years ago with the objective of bringing financial inclusion into India. When we saw these key numbers, right, that most of India has not paid digitally, does not have insurance, does not get access to a lot of credit, has not invested in long-term mutual funds, etc. And most of the solutions that are currently being offered in the space, right, are either for the top 10 digitized space, right, people who are digitally aware, who are in the self-service space. So we thought we'll leave the top 10% and probably move to the next large 80%, the remaining 80% of India, for whom what we need is solutions with people for people who have low financial literacy, and specifically solutions which are available beyond banking hours and beyond the doors of banks, right? While we banking and financial services traditionally have been dispensed from gated institutions, to take these services to beyond the next 10% will require these services to come out of those gates. Bringing people into those gates will not be possible. Otherwise, this would have already happened by now, right? Right. What we try to do is create an assisted financial services platform. So what we have done is to bring services to people who do not have digital money or digital literacy. We thought we'll eliminate the problem of them having both of these preconditions by tying up with these small retail merchants spread all across India. We have tie-ups with now about 1 million retailers, of whom about 500,000 of them transact every month with us. And we offer a whole bunch of services, including cash deposits, cash withdrawals, bill payments, recharges, savings accounts, and opening recurring deposits, insurances, and we'll soon be venturing into the space of lending, and utility services like travel, recharges, etc. through these space. To give you an idea of where we have reached till now, right? So what we have done is we've given these retail merchants a mobile app and a web platform, and right. Seems to be something wrong with the screen, I guess.
I think we have moved into,
yeah, I think it's better now.
Yeah.
Right. And what we've been able to do with this model, where we tie up with the retailers and then retailers dispense financial services to the end customers, instead of us or any institution directly dispensing it to the customer, is we have been able to democratize access and democratize trust dispensation, right? Large banks, large institutions, the first thing that they do is dispense trust. That is why people transact with them. By tying up with the nearby retailers, what we have done is that the retailers, we thrive on the retailers trust that the customers already place on them. With a little bit of training, most of these retailers are now digital savvy, have access to smartphones, and are being able to offer services. What our strategy has allowed us to do is bring banking to the regions which are most left out from it. You'll see that we now have about 5 lakh stores spread across 17,000 pin codes, whereas all of banking today is present at about 105,000 branches, right? Through this, we have been able to service about 80 million customers, and do about $700 million dollars worth of GTV, which is about 5,000 crores ballpark every month. We aspire to take this to 10x, where we hope that in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll be servicing almost a billion customers through almost 1 crore retailers, doing about 20,000 crores worth of GTV every month. Right. So the key thing is that so why, if we already have such a large presence, if we already offer about 21 services that we offer through our network of through our systems, why even go the API route, and why the ecosystem play, right? So we fundamentally believe that inclusion is a fundamental right. It should be a fundamental right. While the government has not declared it, but we believe in our outset that is what it should be. And uh, access to a fundamental right should not be delayed by our reach, right, or the lack of our reach, right? There are already so many players in the ecosystem who have direct access to customers. There are small retail networks, localized retail networks, networks of recharge players, of travel agents, who have about 5,000 to anywhere between 300 to 3,000 stores, who are already dispensing digital services to customers. We have a lot of supply chain organizations with distributed order taking apps, applications with distributors and retailers for placing orders. We have organizations which do direct to customer sales, organizations like Eureka Forbes, Oriflame, etc., who have a lot of these people on the ground who already are reaching out to many lakhs, if not crores of people on a daily basis. We have, and on the tech front, we have a lot of these software companies, the HRMSs ones, HRMSs guys, the accounting softwares, inventory softwares, billing softwares, etc., where a lot of digital transactions are already being processed. Our agenda is to uh, uh, tie up with people like these organizations, explore such tie-ups, and plug financial services into their systems and their networks, so that um, the speed of dispensation of these services can become faster. More customers can be included into the financial services network uh, faster. While we would have probably covered India in, let's say, 10 years, with partnerships we should be able to do it in 5, right? That's the idea. That's the overall idea, right? uh, so the idea of PayNearby Connect was to offer all of PayNearby as a service, where we use our existing backend, where we have partnered with bankers, with insurers, with utility companies, with NBFCs and various lenders, and bring in a layer of partners in between, right? Partners who telcos who directly connect with consumers, or travel companies who connect with consumers, software companies with connect directly with consumers, or through other networks who also have small retail stores like FMCG stores, companies, medicine companies, pharma companies who have a retail network, and then provide services to these customers. So the idea is to eliminate the stress or the effort that we have put in over the last 4.5 years in building these backend partnerships, in building the compliance framework that is required, in building the banking relationships that is required, and to offer all of that ready-made, packaged, to people who have access to customers, right? Now, to do all of that, what we needed, right, when we thought of going out on this journey, was a multi-directional platform, if I may say so. So what PayNearby essentially is becoming is, till before we went this road, we were a unidirectional platform where we had a lot of uh, you know retailers at one end, and we were becoming a platform where bankers, insurers, and various service providers could join in connect to dispense their services, right? Now what we are trying to do is become a platform on the other side as well, where many service players in the ecosystem, uh, like I said, the travel guys, the recharge guys, the software guys can also connect with us and then provide services to the customer, which meant to become a multi-directional platform, what we needed was that these layer of partners that we want to onboard and should be able to integrate easily, should be able to onboard themselves easily, should have access to quality documentation. The integration itself should be scalable and secure. Most importantly, secure this because there's a lot of it is financial transactions. Uh, Building scale was important. Today we will have 5 partners. Tomorrow we'll have 500. How will we handle integrations? How will we, make sure that each one we don't have to worry about each integration being unique in itself? How do we bring in easy support? Most of the times, in fact, the biggest service differentiation is in support and the quality of support that we offer to our partners. Banking is banking, whether you do it with us or whether you do it with other players. But how we support our customers is going to be the key differentiator in the long run. Uh, the other important thing was also to make sure that the pricing is viable. Being a startup and having grown this journey, what we've realized is that a lot of heavy initial investment becomes difficult to make, in especially in new businesses where you don't really know how well it is going to scale. And the financial environment today is not very conducive to belief based investments, right? Uh, People want to see success before you want to put in more money. People are not willing to do a lot of upfront investments. So the idea is, how do we build in a pay as you go model? And as we evolve, how do we offer our newer products, our newer offerings to our partners without the whole thing having to be done from scratch, right? So these were the 4 5 problems that we were looking out to solve when we were launching PayNearby Connect. Uh, that is where I think Tyke comes in with a comprehensive API management, and I must compliment the team on the product that has been made available. Uh, yeah, right.
Yes, sir. Just sorry. So try to wind up your 30 seconds to 1 minute if you can just complete it and
Right,
then.
right. Sure, sure, Shashank. So then what we have done is we have installed Tyke. So when third-party apps, whether web or mobile apps, try to reach out to nearby, where we have hosted our service on the cloud as our platform on the cloud as a service, right? There, Tyke will be used as the intermediate authentication layer, the hosting layer, as well as the documentation layer, so that all requests that come to us are validated by Tyke, secured, and then only passed to us. It will also be used as the rate security features like rate limiting, logging, etc. will also be done on the Tyke platform, right? We had planned for a demo, but like Shashank said, for the paucity of time, I will skip that a little bit. Um, the kind of services that we intend to offer all will be around fintech, financial services, banking, fund transfers, collections, savings, a lot on Dukan Tech, which is heating up well, and with our expertise in the retail space, that is where we'll be spending a lot of time, and value-added services including travel, recharges, bill payments, etc. A lot of services that we offer are regulated, so we'll not be offering plain and direct APIs, but we'll be working with tightly controlled SDKs and white label solutions, for which we discuss separately, right? Our overall roadmap is to, we've launched the service in February. We will intend to keep hosting products over the period of a year, and by the end of FY 2021-22, reach $100 million worth of GTV, right? I think with this I will wind up. Thank you everyone for your time. Happy to host questions. Happy to answer questions. Over to you, Shashank.
Thank you, Yashwant. Thank you. So, guys, so we are into the last 10 minutes of the sessions, and what I'll do that I'll open the forum for the questions because many of you must have the lots more questions for all the speakers. I think we have already started getting some of the questions, and we'll just open the floor, platform. If anybody want to ask a question, please raise your hand, and then you can ask the question. So we'll moderate it. We already have questions coming from Vishwanath Reddy Polu. Vishwanath, if you can just talk about your questions, and then we'll pick up your question to answer with one of the speaker. Vishwanath,
hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for the wonderful session.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your wonderful session. And I am actually not from the Fintech. I am an independent inventor that has come up with an unique way of authorization and authentication, for which I've already filed patent, which is pending grant. What I would like to know is API the right way for me to go and deploy this to the whole banking system, number one. Also, I would like to do this on a commercial basis of licensing my IP. Is when you say open banking, is that for only free usage, or does it also have commercial part? That's two part of my question.
Buddha, will you pick it up?
Sure. I can start off with the question around APIs. So I think when we spoke about this earlier, I think it's quite important to know what you're sort of trying to accomplish with your new authentication authorization method. If you are trying to make it available for external parties for consumption, is it going to be like an authentication as a service, so to speak, or security as a service, so to speak, which anyone can pick up and add on to their technology stack and make their systems better and more secure? So if that is going to be the case, then exposing that or making it available, I think API would be a good way to do it. The other way to think about it is, what exactly is it looking to secure? Is it actually securing APIs themselves? Because APIs themselves can have a level of security that goes alongside it. So I think it might depend a little bit on use case, but what APIs would do is essentially it will enable you to expose that or make that service, if I say so, available to a lot of different parties across a lot of different platforms. I think that's where the power of API sort of lies.
Yeah, thanks, Buddha. And I think part to your questions, Vishwanath, like open banking is only the free uses. It's depend on your business model, and it definitely is prompt for the various monetization mechanism. You can charge it on the API basis, or you can have a different monetization making. So it's all evolving as ultimately everybody wants to make money as a part of the business. So whether anybody is launching the APIs and letting other participants to consume those APIs, definitely there is a means to make a monetization, and that's depend on the business model that you're going to pick it up.
What open banking, sorry, just to add on a little bit there, just what open banking is essentially a standard. It essentially tries to standardize certain things across the board, making it trying to make it a little bit easier for consumption by external parties. So I don't think there is necessarily a blocker there when it comes to commercial offerings or anything of that sort. It's essentially a means of standardization rather than anything else.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I appreciate it. I think I have my answers. Buddha and Shashank, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Vishwanath. So next, Alok, can you just go ahead with your question? And I think it's coming to Yashwant to you. So Alok, please go ahead with your question.
Hey, hi, Yashwant. Yashwant, my question would be to you. I want to understand the PayNearby, the backend platform which you are to which you are providing the services, the banking services, the payment services. What is the backend platform? Is it the AEPS, UPI, IMPS which you are using? The first question. The second question: how you are, addressing the frauds? The third question would be: are you also getting the offline transactions as of now? These are the three questions. And a generic question, fourth question would be,
I think we have to limit it to a couple of
Okay.
questions because we'll have lots of participants asking the
Fair
question.
enough. That's it. Yeah, please.
So, Alok, thank you. So to take your questions part by part, right? So we are integrated with all the three payment modes that you mentioned: AEPS, UPI, IMPS, also NEFT, which we will not mention. It depends on the use case for which the payment is offering, right? So the idea of offering, so PayNearby Connect and PayNearby in general and the Connect platform is it's think of it as an a la carte menu, and you can use what you want to eat based on when you want to eat it, right? So for example, if you want to do a real-time merchant payment, probably UPI is the best use case for you. If you want to do a fund person-to-person fund transfer, while UPI is a very good use case, but IMPS also does that job very, very well, right? If you want to do it at a lower cost than that, NEFT does it well, although it has its own latency, right? AEPS, we generally use it for cash out for DBT services that the government provides, and not as a as a standard payment mode for doing the typical payment that you and I would probably foresee. Similarly, we also offer CNP services, card not present services, link based payments as they are popularly known as, for online merchant basis. So it depends on exactly, really what it depends is on the use case that you want. And yeah, that is the first part. As regards the fraud and disputes, right? You would have seen that we said that a lot of our regulated offerings, I specifically mentioned, are not available as pure play APIs. They are available in as a white label solution or as a SDK. A lot of what we do, why we offer it as an SDK or as a white label solution and not as a simple API, is to build in these security checks. Things like geofencing, things like rate limits, right? Those are things that we've already baked into the SDKs, right? Things like face recognition for login. A merchant cannot, an OTB is sharing a password. So, for example, I cannot share my password of the SDK to Shashank, who's sitting, let's say, in Delhi, so that he can do a transaction there, right? It requires face authentication based login. So those are the security checks that we're building. Even after that, yes, as long as there are locks, there will be keys. There are cases of frauds. There some cases do happen, for which we have a robust chargeback mechanism, which we have developed over the last 4.5 years, from automated checks, alerts, auto checks, to manual verification based process. I think it comes with a lot of experience, and which is what we want to eliminate for other people, right? You don't have to spend time developing all of this. We have done all of that. We have done the hard work. We have done the legwork. I suggest you just need to take it up, integrate it with your software, and get going. Start doing the marketing. Leave the plumbing to us, right? That's the idea, Alok.
Thanks, Ashwin. Thanks. Okay. I will going one questions to Irwin. So Irwin or Buddha, you can pick it up. So with your global presence, Tyke having a global presence, you have been seeing the transition of the APIs with open banking standards coming up. Singapore also the API playbooks coming up. How you seeing that this transitions taking shape in the next couple of years? Be it talk about the banking as a services or the open banking. So probably use of the APIs and building new business models. So how do you see this transition shaping place in the next couple of years? Any one of you, Buddha or Irwin?
Do you want to go for that, or I can give a quick introduction? Yeah, so I think the landscape has already started evolving. I think we've started seeing applications more and more looking at API as their basis, as an underlying sort of transaction method for whether that's data, whether that is for any other form of communication between systems. And typically now what we are seeing also is across the stack, there are so many different kinds of systems that you need to interact with. And an application is no longer just a simple basic application, but you've got a lot of underlying thing. And it's very, I think Sanchit's slide sort of alluded to that already, with all of these underlying services that are already available.
I think making all of those available across different platforms, I think APIs have been the most robust sort of way, reliable way to actually accomplish all of that. I think moving forward across I would say across the next few years, you might see a few different methods for consumption of this coming in. I think we have already started. We touched a little bit upon newer technologies coming in from time to time, with say GraphQL being one of them. We previously had things like SOAP, which was already available as a service. And I think we've seen those transitions happening over the period of the last 10, 15 years. And I think that might keep happening. What we have seen as a trend for sure is that a lot of these applications that people are building, they're very use case driven and focused. So it's not so much that a new technology is here and let's make use of that, but it's so like, I have a need and then this technology is coming in and it's going to help us out. So building robust, scalable, secure, and I think stable applications, I think you'll see more and more APIs probably driving that. And I think all of these standards that are coming up, whether that's open banking, open finance, it's all in service of actually making things more open for people for consumption, so that people who have services that they can provide to people can be easily consumed in a standardized manner to build more robust and scalable applications. So that would be, again, my take on this.
Thank you, Buddha. Thank you. And guys, I think Yashwant, Irvin, and Sanjit, we have a couple of more questions. So I think if you are okay, so we'll extend for 5-10 minutes. So I hope it's okay with all of you. Okay, perfect. So Alex, you have our next questions. So can you just go ahead with your question? And Sanjit, it's coming to you. So Alex, you're on the mute. Good to see you again.
Yes, I am on mute. Sorry about that. Alex Penner, based in London. I was asking about stress testing APIs and also error messaging around APIs. There's a lot of complaints inside the UK market, particularly around the open banking environment, that it's a balance between the API provider and the end destination data system, which may be a bank or maybe a lend system, for example. And that there's a lot of confusion around how we get clarity to whichever end consumer of the API is receiving error messages and or experiencing outages due to stress. Can you talk to how tech works with that? And potentially how you're looking at that from your solution as well?
Instead of an answer, how would you prefer a dirge from me? And because that's exactly what it is when I'm talking about microservices. Again, so it's very straightforward for somebody like me to say, you know what, my microservices are the nirvana of distributed computing, but it's probably easier said than done as well. Take for instance load testing. So when you want to load test an API is just an interface which pretty much depends on the underlying data layer to take data to you. That's it, right? Which means that, you know, as long as your data is structured in the right manner, you should be able to do fine and just fine. Let's see how it happens. In a typical scenario, where you have a single database to both record data and get data out, that would pretty much end up being the bottleneck right there. Because in typical, so let's say if you have a typical scenario where a lot of your customers are just window shopping, your database is going to have a lot many more reads than writes. And those reads are going to choke up whatever writes you're going to probably have. So the first kind of thing that you might want to have is, again, separation of concerns, right? So you might want to have a separate data for, you know, invoking and recording transactions and a separate data for reading transactions off of it. And then you might think, you know what, you've achieved nirvana and you are fine, you know, and stuff should work now. Unfortunately, that's not really the case, because if we are talking about true separation of concerns, we're actually talking about microservices being able to asynchronously pass messages across each other. And it's not just these two microservices, right? So these are there are going to be multiple layers of services talking to each other. And we might have tracing enabled, but doing them for asynchronous method calls is actually pretty hard. And multiply that, we know what the number of APIs that you have and the service that you might end up having in a distributed system is actually pretty hard. So a single API for that, like I said, you know, it boils down to how you are structuring data across databases. how your microservices interact with each other, how you actually end up doing telemetry. I think that's pretty important. So every single time we build microservices, and this is what we used to do in the past. Every single time you would build a microservice, you would have to integrate an SDK which would plug into the tracing application. So this is also what you do when you use something like Jaeger, right? So you have an SDK embedded, and that agent is supposed to send events back to the collector, and then they give you a nice tracing diagram. I think that approach works well if you have exactly one customer, and then it all breaks down. But yeah, so these things are better managed when we first start off with a monolith. And this might sound like me being blasphemous, but I think it makes a lot of sense when you're starting with a monolith, because you would know exactly how your ecosystem behaves. Whether you really do need to separate your databases into different read databases and write databases. So first, understand your ecosystem. Because doing tracing for a monolithic application is fairly straightforward. The only problem that you come up with is when you talk about microservices. So start with the monolith, have a decent-ish database in place, and see what your usage is like, and maybe take that as the point of deciding, what, we're getting a lot many more reads on this one specific database than writes. So why don't we just take this as a starting point and just separate these two to begin with? So that sort of that sort of should be your point when you want to take that decision.
Let's start with a cost scale back end, which is your database, basically. Scale your database and make that more efficient, and then divide the services up either into channels or into just hierarchical layers. Okay.
Yeah,
I think just adding on a little bit, just a really small thing to that. I think I actually agree a little bit around starting out with monolith, because that's when I started building application. That's sort of how it was. I think the benefit of that also, I think having something like an API management gateway or a platform as well, I think, is when you're trying to make the transition out from your monolith to even services, you don't have to do a one-shot service switch. You can always have your monolith where you can start swapping new things out or add things in, where again, you can still have that little separation of concerns where you have dedicated things acting on dedicated functionalities or features or capabilities, with something bringing all of that together cohesively, which in this case could be an API management gateway, taking care of your security layer, taking care of your administrative segments of all of that. So that could be another approach for your architecture.
And API management, in fact, I would go so far as to say an API management is actually the perfect monolith, which handles all those things for you, right? It's actually a monolith.
Yeah. Thanks, Sanchit. Thanks, Buddha, to adding to that. So we'll have a space for one or two questions. So we'll pick it up now. The questions keeps on flooding. So this is next very interesting questions, I think, by Pooja, but she's not there. Pooja, are you there? I don't think so. So, okay, so that's a pretty interesting question. So I'll pick it up, and Yashwant, I'll throw it to you. And it will be interesting for others to see that. So it's probably, she's talking about like lots of forms like Setu and now PayNearby also coming up with, are essentially creating APIs for services which are already provided by banks and the financial institutions. Why can't banks do that themselves?
I will try and answer this in 2-3 parts, right? One is firms like Setu or firms like PayNearby offering financial services, APIs, etc. Right? One is that people like Setu, people like PayNearby Connect, if PayNearby Connect were a separate organization, or more people like us will continue to thrive because we don't only offer 2 or 3 banking services. What I think it is a reduction of what we do by saying that we are exposing financial services APIs. So that is one side. Why can't banks do it themselves? It's like saying, the makers, the founder of Revlon or the founder of Armani will look the best in their creation. So it's that does not work that way, right? People are good at everybody's good at some things. Anybody who tries to be good at everything pretty much always turns out to be not good at any of them, right? Banks are very good at compliance. Banks are very good at keeping things stable. Banks are very good at dispensing trust. Trust that small organizations like Setu or PayNearby find it very hard to develop. It takes years for people to trust us, right? Maybe even longer, right? But banks, large financial institutions do that part very well. They do that well by keeping things stable and taking taking a very hard look at compliance and all of that. Younger organizations like us, Setu, many more organizations, right? We are nimbler, so we are able to provide some of the things very well. Uh, Banks have the overall responsibility of offering everything, right? We don't have to offer FD and RD, right? A lot of these trade solutions or international solutions, etc. We don't have to. We are doing good in a small section of us. So it's not about whether banks can do it. I don't believe banks can do it well. Banks can do it well by powering people like us and partnering with people like us. Many specialists like us together combine to form all the services that a bank provides. So it is not a mutually exclusive solution. This partnership requires both of us to exist strongly for each other for it to really work out.
Thanks, Ashwant. So I think now we'll like to wrap up. I think we have left out with some of the questions. So we'll pick up those questions and we'll respond in the mail. So Peggy and work out and then we'll share the response. Now we'll just have before we wind up the sessions, we would like to have another poll coming to you, and we'll be very happy to hear your response, and it's primarily help us to refine that our webinars programs.
Okay, so unlike GDPR, there's no way for me to opt out of this.
Yeah, you can't do that. Okay, so you can just forbid to not to respond. Yeah, thanks. So Malvika, we'll just stop that poll. Thank you guys for your feedback, and I'd like to thank all the speakers taking our time, Sanchit, Buddha, Erwin, and Yashwant to facilitate these sessions. Really, and thank you. And Erwin, just closing sessions. Anything you would like to talk about before we take it?
Thank you everyone again. So maybe I'll just wrap up with last statement that so Thai API platform, although we say it's an open source product, but it's definitely a secure platform where we support a lot of out of the box authentication, industry standard authentication. So don't get it wrong that open source is not secure. It's definitely a very secure platform. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you very much. Look forward to
having us, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.